Hello to you, family. How are you doing? We are in 2020. The Lord is so good. We've made it through 2019. We are in 2020. And it is All Things with Sibongile. I am right here at Radio Pulpit, your daily companion. And I'm meeting with Sis Buyiswa Mpini from UNESCO. I did promise the family that I'll be talking to her about CSE, which is the Comprehensive Sexuality Education. Family, we are back yet again. As I promised you, I'm not alone. I'm with Sis Buyiswa Mpini. Sis Buyiswa, how are you doing?
Hi, Sposh. I'm well, Bongi. Hi, family. I'm doing very well. I'm doing great. It's a new year, new possibilities, new grace. We thank God we have arrived in 2020.
Sis Buyiswa, thank you so much for allowing to meet with us to clarify a few things.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go anywhere, tell us who is Sis Buyiswa Mpini and your role at UNESCO.
Okay, so Buyiswa Mpini is me, a whole me, a mother of four, a born-again Christian. I'd like to mention that before I was an employee of UNESCO, is that I have met the Lord when I was 15, since we are talking to family that knows the Lord, that works with the Lord. So I want to say I'm one of the family.
Yeah.
And I'm from PE, by the way, but I've been in the Gauteng province for 5 years now.
So it's home for you.
Now it's becoming home for me, and my children are here. Yeah. All of them. We're just missing the father. Yeah. We hope he joins us soon.
Your role at UNESCO.
So my role at UNESCO, I am called a national program officer. So I am a UNESCO national staff employed to support South African programs.
Okay.
And I am South African. And my role is to work in the space of education and supporting the programs of education in ensuring that we achieve positive educational outcomes.
Now, Sis Buyiswa, we have a lot of concerned parents. Last year, I asked family to send in their questions on CSE, the Comprehensive Sexuality Education.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of parents that are concerned because of the videos that have been making rounds in the social spaces, social media spaces, where we see grade 4s being taught sex. Yes. But these are footages that came from other countries who were complaining about CSE in their countries.
Yes.
Now, there's a great concern that has risen as a result of that to parents, and they're asking themselves, because they heard all of these things coming from other countries. They're like, UNESCO. Who is UNESCO? Maybe if we can start there and explain who is UNESCO and their involvement in our education.
So UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. It's the UN agency that is made up, I hope parents and families and the family or my country people understand what is the United Nations role in all countries, in the
whole
global
world.
village.
Yeah.
It is, the UN is made up of the different member states. All countries make up the UN. And the United Nations then, as it was formed to support, to ensure that the world never again goes into world war.
Yeah.
So initially it was formed to address issues of peace in terms of relations as an international world. And then under the whole UN, there are different bodies or agencies that are supporting the member states in the development agenda. So UNESCO is one of them, and UNESCO is the agency that supports member states, all countries internationally, in addressing issues of education, all issues that are related to education. So, and it is made up of all countries. So whatever UNESCO implements is not an agenda that's coming from in space. It's an agenda that all countries, representatives from the different countries, for example, ministers of education from all countries sit together and agree this is the agenda that we are going to be addressing in terms of improving access to education for all children in our different countries in this manner. That is who UNESCO is.
Sis Buyiswa, one of the questions that parents were asking was, why was comprehensive sexuality education introduced in our schools? Do we need such?
So, Sis Bongile, parents need to understand that comprehensive sexuality education is not being introduced in our schools. It has been part of the curriculum since time memorial. It's just that right now it is the name that has been given to it that is making now it's a strange thing. When I was growing up in high school, I did guidance. In high school, I did biology, and in biology, I learned about body parts, including puberty. So it was part of the curriculum. It's just that now, in terms of how it has been structured, it has been put in life orientation. That part, that which it was taught in biology, because it is in terms of the development of a child, the issue of puberty has been found that it has to be taught in a life skills manner, so that a child, as they are growing up, they need to understand how their body works, how their mind works, and how their emotions work. Not only just to learn the physical functions of the body, but also how it's affecting them as it's part of their development.
Yeah, because there are questions like, what is the agenda of CSE in the schools? What is it promoting?
So there is no agenda. One of the things that parents need to be aware of, I have been involved in the space even before I worked with UNESCO in the space of HIV prevention since early 2000. I was actually fortunate before to be employed in an organization called Mvesane, where we were working in communities where there was a lot of HIV related illnesses, people dying because of ignorance around the issue of HIV. Okay. And so, and part of the strategy to protect or prevent HIV spreading, one of the things that we did as the organization was to engage with schools in a program that is called peer education. Schools had life orientation at the time, and we supported by developing a program of peer education where we were engaging with young people on issues of life skills, and part of life skills is to teach comprehensive sexuality education. It's just that at that time it was not termed or defined or named comprehensive sexuality education. It was termed HIV information and education. So it has been part of the strategy to prevent HIV. But in terms of schools, in terms of the curriculum, it's part of equipping our learners and our young people with skills that they're going to need to navigate their life as they are growing. Because school must not only just teach you knowledge. One of my colleagues that I had a conversation with before made a very important statement to say our children will have good mathematics and science marks, and when they get to university they will be dying because they have no life skills. They will make decisions that are irresponsible, that may expose them to certain things, unhealthy relationships, exposing themselves to. And I've worked also in the universities with first year students where many were falling pregnant because they come into a different world, the high school environment, and them growing up at home did not prepare them to a world of freedom, and where they have choices. There's no boundaries, there's no mom, and all of a sudden our first year students were falling pregnant. Come second year, they have children, and then this one colleague of mine said, our children have all these degrees, but when they finish education, they are not able to now becoming productive citizens because they've been exposed to HIV infection that may actually prevent them from becoming productive citizens.
I understand, Sis Buyiswa Mpini, there is a research that has been made on how our children are falling pregnant at schools and dropping out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So in South Africa, we have what we called Human Research Science Council, which does every 5 years a survey, a behavioral communication and social survey on how are we behaving as a nation, as a people, from the ages from 0 to beyond 60, and looking at the trends, especially around issues of HIV, teenage pregnancy. And it has been found through this research that our children start consensual sex, as early as age of 14. Of course, some of them
engaging.
Yes, engaging
at
in
the
sex
age of 14,
as early as an age of 14.
Which is like that person is where, in grade 12?
They are in grade
7.
They are in grade 9. Grade 9. If they follow like a right progression, they are in grade 9. Yes. So that's what the research has said, and we, as you are aware, is that in South Africa we are having a very big problem of high teenage pregnancy. So CSE is not being introduced. It's just that we are giving it the name CSE now, but it was part of the life orientation in our schools since 2000.
Now, who is to be blamed for the pregnancy of our children, the high rate of the pregnancy? Should we be pointing fingers to our parents, to the educational system?
Teenage pregnancy, the high rate of teenage pregnancy for our children is a very complex issue. And when we do research and we look at who is making our children pregnant, first of all, especially with the teenagers, we found that when they start even relationships, boyfriend and girlfriend relationships, we find them that they don't start with their peers. They start with a boy. If it's a girl, it's a boy almost 5 years older than them. So we find that our children, they get engaged with age disparate relationships. What we say.
So a 14-year-old will fall in love with the first year at tertiary.
Yeah, a 19-year-old. Yes, it's possible. And our children also, they don't know that. Which the parents also don't know, or I'm not sure if they know, that to have sex with a child who's less than 16 years of age, in terms of law in South Africa, it is rape.
Yeah.
So one of the things that CSE teaches learners or young people is about the fact that age of consent in sex is actually from 6 years. 16 years, sorry, not 6 years. It's supposed to be from 16 years and above. If you are having sex with someone who's less than 16 years, it's actually statutory rape. And you are not supposed to be consenting to sex as early as before you are 16 years of age in terms of the law in the country. So
is that what?
So one of the things that are contributing to the high teenage pregnancy is the fact that our children, there is a very early sexual debut in the country. Secondly, is that our young people, as I've already said, they are in age. Our young girls are in age disparate relationships where they are not even able to negotiate for themselves what goes on in terms of the things that go on in their relationships. Thirdly, supervision. Our children have no supervision. As parents, we also need to take some responsibility. We are absent in our children's lives. We are actually allowing cell phones and TVs and TV games to raise our children, and we are not having conversations. So children are not supervised. Fourthly, the issue of poverty. It's also featuring, because the kids, when you are engaging with them, young people, and you're asking, what makes you, allow yourselves to date older men, then they would say, at home we are poor, my parents are unemployed, there's no money, and sometimes this boyfriend of mine provides for me. So poverty also plays a part. And then lack of information and access to sexual reproductive health services. The young people will say, I didn't know that I was supposed to use contraceptives, or I didn't know that I was supposed to use condoms. Or those of us who know, when we go to clinics, we find ourselves being judged because now we are engaging in sex as young as we are. So then we don't. So there are a number of reasons that lead to a high rate of teenage pregnancy.
And what about our young girls when it comes to their menstrual cycles? Do we find that they understand this? Because it brings concern to say, if you don't understand.
That's another thing that the young people, they are saying, you know what, when we are having conversations, parents, we are also to be blamed, I think, because they don't understand how the menstrual cycle works. And the fact that you can actually fall pregnant before you even have your first menstrual period, in the sense that when you are reaching puberty, which is what CSE also aims to address, is that when you are reaching puberty, the hormonal changes that happens into your sexual reproductive system happens before the producing of the egg that that travels through the ovaries and all of that towards the womb. It can happen, and if at that time that it's traveling, you are having sex, you are not aware of the ovulation,
so you might catch.
You are pregnant
even before
you even seen your first period, and then you're like, I know, but I did not have periods. But your body was developing towards you starting having periods, but then at that time you engage in sex, and then unfortunately you fell pregnant.
But now, if CSE will be addressing this, what about abstinence? Because that's one of the things that we are concerned about as parents. I'm going to put the we, because that's what parents are saying.
And me and you, we are both parents. Yes, of course. That is the thing about the CSE, is that it actually addresses a whole lot of things. It's not only addressing issues of sex, it's addressing decision making, it's addressing how to build and make relationships. And then one of the core messages, in fact, in the curriculum that the CSE is trying to spread is that having no sex, abstinence, is actually the first and the best defense against falling pregnant, against STIs and getting infected with HIV. So abstinence is part of the messaging that the learners will get as they are learning the part of the human sexuality in the life orientation curriculum.
So it's part of the life orientation. It's part of the lesson plans.
Yes, it's part of the lesson plans, scripted lesson plans that they will be taught about delaying sexual debut.
How big is it? Is it going to be like concentrating on that when we're talking LO?
So life orientation is done according to phases.
Okay.
So with the younger kids, and this is actually the principle that we actually, all of us, including parents, we need to apply, is that the younger we get our children and teach them about the right information at the right time, then the better for us, because then we are preventing. It is hard because sometimes when we get them, the children are already started.
They know.
They're like really, my mother, like you are late. If you like, because I have a 17-year-old, and when I try to address these issues with him, which I've tried to address right through his lifetime, some I think he's like, you are too late, because I've already had my own way of finding out. So abstinence and delay of sexual debut is very much a big part of the emphasis of the younger generation from the younger ages. Okay. And if we're talking about grades, for example,
we're
not talking about abstinence with 5-year-olds, because 5-year-olds don't know nothing about relationships. But relationships, remember, they start the interest in adolescence around relationship starts at the age of around about 12 years of age, when they start now to see girls start to see boys in a different way, and girls starting to see boys in a different way, because up to 10, we're talking about children who are innocent, and 11, still innocent, they see themselves just as children. But from the ages of 12, then the adolescence, the onset of adolescence, in fact, it starts as early as 9 in terms of the physical, but in terms of the emotional and the interest in the different relationships, start around about 12. So up until that age, we emphasize the delay of sexual debut, in fact, even up to 13, I think, because I think the issues around, even with the other ages, let me not say it's only part of that age group, because even when we are addressing grade 9s, and when we are talking to grade 10s, and when we are talking to grade 11s, including grade 12s, who are now, we know that they are fully fledged involved in relationships, the first message when we are addressing that part of sexuality is that delaying sexual debut is best for you. And then if you choose to be engaging in sex, then please protect yourself against.
So we're starting them as young as possible, like grade 4.
from grade 4 we start discussing, because
grade 4s are your 10-year-old,
yes,
11-year-old.
Yes. I'm trying to look at the topics because I don't want to be talking out of context here. So in the grade 4 to grade 6, for example, the first lesson is respect for my own body, and then respecting the body of others, dealing with conflict, emotions, why am I feeling this way, dealing with bullying. So there, in the respecting of my own body, that there we're not talking about abstinence basically, but we are talking about understanding that this is your space, this is the body, is a precious gift that you've got, and it's yours, it belongs to you, and the other person's body belongs to them, and you are not supposed to be doing things that are unwelcome.
Who can touch you?
Who can touch you in your body, who cannot touch you. So we are talking about those things in children, but we do mention starting about teaching our children about transmission of HIV. Remember, our children are very innocent. If we are in the playground and then someone happens to bleed, our children need to understand transmission of, like, the basics around the transmission of HIV. That is what we are addressing from the grade 4s. But then in grade 5s and 6, then we talk about the issues of, because these kids, they are wiser than we think they are. We start to talk about the fact that there could be issues of abstinence. We need to abstain. We, in fact, the Department of Basic Education, in my understanding, they actually advocates for, these are kids, these are children. We want them to remain as honest as possible, as
pure as possible. But now there are concerns with the leakage. When the news came out on CSE, there have been news on self-stimulation. Parents would like to know if there's a module for self-stimulation, module on sexual orientation, and specifically on the LGBTQI.
Okay, so in this, to respond to your question, definitely there is no lesson on self-stimulation. There is no lesson on, what is the other one that you were saying?
The sexual orientation, especially on the
sexual orientation. Orientation. I'm not understanding when they're saying there's a topic on sexual orientation. I would like to perhaps just read out the topics that our children are being taught, so that they don't say, "Hi, Buyiswa is lying."
Because remember, there's another video that made rounds with children being taught on how to put on a condom on a dildo. We had like 7 children who were girls.
Is that, and what grade was that?
The grade was not mentioned, but when you looked at them, you could say they are like 12 years, 13, and they were taught on how one can put on a condom on a dildo and stuff like that. Do we have such in the system?
Okay, so let me just read the topics. First of all, let me allay the fears of my parents for their 10-year-olds. Grade 4, respect for my own body, respecting the bodies of others, dealing with conflict, emotions, why am I feeling this way, bullying, responding to bullying, culture, society, and sexuality. The basics of HIV and AIDS, transmission of HIV, and celebrating the life of Nkosi Johnson. In grade 7 to 9, we deal again with body image, and then I can choose my relationships. This is my body, and I say what happens to it. The benefit of good and safe relationships, child abuse, keeping myself safe from abuse. Sexual grooming, I can say no, and I think this is the one that people can misinterpret, because they would say that we are teaching children about how to groom, whereas this one is actually targeting children.
How to accept pedophilia.
This is telling children there are adults there that may prey on you. Understand, when adults are doing this to you, they are grooming you. They are actually trying to attract you so that they can use you sexually, and you need to say no to that. So that's sexual grooming. That topic can mislead people thinking that we are now teaching children about how to use sexual groom, but we are actually warning children around the dangers of that. Dealing with violent situations. What is sexual violence? Learning from our elders. Should boys and girls be treated differently? Dealing with the stigma of HIV. Changing the attitude towards people infected with HIV. Grade 10s to 12, our seniors, our adolescents, fully fledged. My body is changing. My body image, I am who I am. body image, acceptance of self, negative and positive peer pressure, behaviors that put pressure on us, bullying and links to gender-based violence. Bullies can change. What is gender stereotyping, sexism and abuse, gender equality, stereotypes and bias, HIV and AIDS, stigma, care and treatment. So let me say, Sis Bongi, these are the topics. So in the topics, for example, about gender, what is gender stereotyping, sexism and abuse? When we deal with gender in grade 10 to 12, we as a country, this is what our parents must understand, is that the constitution of our country says we treat everyone with respect and equality despite the difference. What we teach our children is that when we meet those who are different to us, we are not supposed to stigmatize them.
So now parents had raised a concern. I think I thought that there were parents who went and checked the lesson plans, and one was explaining how graphic, and they were concerned about the lesson plans being too graphic, for their children. Discussions of private parts and description of pedophilia. What is pedophilia? Or attempted rape or preteen molestation.
So I think...
Are they that graphic?
So for the educator guide, I think for the educator guide, the information...
Which is for...
teachers.
Yes.
So parents, I hope that when they went to the scripted lesson plans, they looked at the different books, because there is a learner book and then there is a teacher book, teacher guide book. So in the teacher guide book, teachers need to know everything. So the information there is as comprehensive as possible. But for the children, the information is provided for the children. And the children goes back, fortunately, when they are being taught, the learner books, they take them home with them to their parents, because the other aim here is that there must also be a conversation between parents and children. So on some of these topics where...
So parents are not going to get the graphic in...
No, the parents are going to get the children's...
The learner's books.
A homework
books,
activity to say, can you help explain? But there is no way that we are going to ask parents to teach their children how they are having sex and how they are putting them on condoms. But we are hoping, I think, and this is now from our side as UNESCO, we have a program that we started on PCC, a program on PCC, which is the parent-child communication. And in the parent-child communication, as UNESCO, we're actually going to start and rolling it out in South Africa, where we are going to train our parents on addressing these issues, because one of the big things that we have found is that parents are not talking to their children. And if parents are so concerned that teachers are not supposed to be telling certain things to their children,
because that's one of the concerns.
It would be best that
parents feel that their rights are being infringed, because now that right is taken from them of teaching their children on these matters. This
because as much as I'm UNESCO, I can at least safely say this one in terms of how the Department of Basic Education works. The Department of Basic Education works with a three-legged pot: the parent, the child, and the teacher. Always, and for the Department of Education, and through the SGB. So for the Department of Basic Education, parents must never left behind. So where, for example, this issue of the scripted lesson plans, because the scripted lesson plans also, I must just clarify, because I am in the know, they are only implemented, they are still tested in certain provinces and in certain number of schools. And where that is done, parents are sensitized, they are exposed to what the material is about, they are taught, they are shared with them the topics, and the teachers are trained, because I think there was also a question where or a comment that teachers are saying they are not trained to implement.
Apparently a lot of teachers have been saying they know nothing about it.
I think teachers, we must also understand that teachers are human beings, and I think where I am uncomfortable with a certain thing in my work, I can actually put a disclaimer.
But if we would put
life
teachers,
orientation,
yes, I wanted to ask the life orientation.
Who are these teachers who are saying that they are not trained? Because life orientation teachers are definitely trained by the Department of Education to implement life orientation.
One last question, Sis Buyiswa. You mentioned something about in like in one of the lesson plans, that a child would be taught that this is my body and I have the right to say what happens to it. I think that scares parents as well.
That lesson is about the children being able to protect themselves against child abuses. Can parents go into that lesson and we don't have enough time for me to go into it now, so that we can go
break it down.
The next conversation can go into that. Parents can, I'm just encouraging them to go in there. It's about the children knowing that this body is their body. Nobody is supposed to do anything that they are not approving to do. And it's more about protecting them against child abuse and sexual abuse that is so rampant in our country.
So as a born-again Christian, Sis Buyiswa, you are happy with CSE?
And this is not about the fact that I am working for UNESCO. If this was not sitting comfortable with me, I would not be standing here. I am a parent myself. I've born children, and I teach. In fact, in my church with young people, I engage on these issues because it's better to engage before our young people can fall into the trap. I am very comforted as a born-again Christian, because remember, the Bible says Christ has come so that we may have life and life in abundance. As far as my understanding and my involvement in the CSE, it's life-giving in the sense that it is preventative rather than pushing children to do certain things. It's actually trying to teach children skills and attitudes and values that will actually make them to make healthy life choices and decisions for their lives, so that they can realize their potential. The aim behind it is not to sexualize our children, but is to make sure that our children are protected and we want them to delay to be engaging in sex. In South Africa, it is too bad. It is said to be having 10 to 14-year-olds who are falling pregnant. It is said to have 14-year-olds. Okay, 10 to 14-year-olds, I always say to this one. The 10 to 13, I still want to investigate who is raping our children and making them pregnant. But our 14-year-olds, our 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, they are saying they have consented from the age of 14. For me, as a born-again Christian, that is sad. And if we can engage with them to delay further and not engage as early as 14 with sex consensually, and they can take the decision to say, let me start, because the parents are concerned about maybe 5 or 10% of the content of CSE, the large part about healthy relationships, the large part about respect, about dealing with emotions. We are forgetting that we are just focusing on this one part that is sitting uncomfortable with us because we are parents here. But as a Christian, I am saying this is life-giving in the sense that it is equipping our children before they get to these things that they learn about them to protect themselves.
And I'm sure that parents, do have the right to be scared because of all the images that they were shown.
I think that is the one thing that we did not address in my response, is to say most of the videos that were making rounds were really things that I also don't know. I have not seen in the. So we must not take what happens in other countries and think it's going to happen in South Africa. And one of the things that I can assure parents is that in South Africa, this is homegrown. Because you also asked that question about whose agenda is this. This has been done by people who are working here in South Africa. South Africans developed the content. No international people. It is South Africans. Even there was one lady who said, from the beginning, even early in 2000, I was part of the development of the life orientation and the pedagogy that was informing the development of this curricula was actually African based in terms of the values that were being pushed. It's just that I understand with parents there are certain things that we can be uncomfortable with. I'm not going to deny that. For example, as I was saying that with gender, we are talking about the fact that in our country we treat everyone the same, and that for us, I think as Christian, can be uncomfortable, especially as you were saying around issues of sexual orientation, which we know according to the Bible that this is one of the things the Bible speaks against. But however, in the country accepts, and therefore as Christians we also have the Christian responsibility and obligation to respect the country's constitution, however uncomfortable we feel about certain things.
Sis Buyiswa, for more information, the schools are reopening on Wednesday.
On Wednesday,
on Wednesday, our children are going back to schools. Teachers are going back to school on Monday, and I'm just thinking about parents who are already scared about what children are going to get when they get to school. Where can parents look for these lesson plans and learn more and know more about these, and who can they ask questions after, if they have questions on those lesson plans?
So I think with regard to the lesson plans, at the moment, let me commit me, and then I will connect, because I came here to speak as a UNESCO employee, not as a Department of Basic Education.
Yes.
However, in the Department of Basic Education website, www.dbe.gov.za, if I'm right, but the DBE website has the lesson plans, and I want parents, when they are welcome to please read the learner book versus the teacher book, so that you have the right connection information. And then there, in terms of any queries,
they can write their queries there.
You can share your queries there, and there are contacts of the Department of Basic Education officials that are responsible with the Department of Education content, because Mnage, I am speaking as a UNESCO employee, but you are also welcome to clarify. I don't know if I'm allowed to give my Facebook thing, so that they can give inbox there. I can respond to inbox messages on my Facebook page. It's Buyiswa Mpini.
Yeah, Buyiswa Mpini, that's all.
That's all.
And now I understand you have something coming for the leaders, the church leaders as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely, it's exciting. So we because of all the hoopah halu that was created in the social media space and media around the issue of CSE, the Department of Basic Education has committed to have conversations at a national level to clarify the CSE implementation in schools for different stakeholders. So we are starting with young people on the 22nd of January, and having a conversation with them about the CSE implementation in schools. We are talking to religious and traditional leaders on the 23rd of January, and I hope some of you of your leaders who are watching us are going to join us in the space. You gave me some contacts which I've tried to invite on the 20. So on the 23rd we will be having that conversations with religious leaders,
which is in like in 2 weeks' time.
It's in 2 weeks' time, and that's one of my stresses right now, because I need to. We support logistically, but this is a Department of Education conversation with its stakeholders, and then on 24 January it will be the school governing body associations and teacher unions, because some of the teacher unions were quite disclaiming,
not happy as well.
Saying that no, we don't know. So we are now clarifying, because the department was to clarify. And then on Monday we said that on the 27th, I think it will be the last meeting with various stakeholders that are already involved in the space, that know the work that we are doing, just so that we round off to say this is what it is. So if they happen to also get any questions, they are able to respond appropriately with the right information to people.
So I'm looking forward to who would like to come, like religious
leaders.
Can they also respond on your?
Please, they
Facebook
can respond. They can respond on my Facebook. Okay. However, we must understand that we cannot accommodate everyone. So what we are doing, we are inviting affiliates, affiliated bodies. So if a religious leader who's listening to me has an affiliated body, please you can share that information so that I can send the invitation, because I'm continuing to send the invitations, even though I'm a bit late in the sense that by the 15th I need to know my numbers.
Okay.
But they are still willing. They are still welcome to contact me.
Will it be an engagement kind of?
Yes, it will be
discussion.
It will be a discussion. It will be a discussion.
It's an Imbizo.
It is an Imbizo.
Okay.
It will be a discussion. We will share the lesson plans. We are encouraging those we are inviting to go onto the website to review the content, because part of that discussion is to say that you've seen the content. What are your concerns? Is there any input that you want to give? This is what we are this is what the scripted lesson plans is, but also this is what CSE implementation means in the South African context. So we are having that engagement.
So I'm a pastor and I belong to whatever group when I want to come, but I don't have a Facebook page, so I can't respond in your inbox. Is there a number I can call?
Okay, so you can call. Let me give my cell number. I hope it will only be used for that purpose, not to be sent threatening messages. I believe that we are all children.
You can give your office number.
My office number
just
is
to be safe.
012 357 3474. And then my email address, b.mpini@unesco.org. I think that those are safe spaces to contact me. I am also willing to answer any questions and clarifications that are needed.
All right. Thank you so much, Sis.
Thank you for having me.
This is just the foundation, right?
Yes.
We still have a long journey with you.
Yes, yes.
This is just the foundation.
And we're not only talking CSE, we're talking
beyond
CSE.
Yeah.
We want to engage on issues that are affecting gender-based violence.
Yeah.
We want to talk about
in tertiary institutions,
gender-based violence in
else,
tertiary institutions, and how can we as family and as Christians get involved in that space to make sure that we get rid of that. We want to talk about
we are needed in such spaces.
We are needed. We are talking about engaging with the Christians in reducing the high rate of teenage pregnancy. Can we have those kinds of conversations as well, where we can make sure that we contribute positively in the development of our children?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a blessed one. Family, it was Sis Buyiswa Mpini. You got all the information. We'll leave it at the end of the show. You can contact her on all those platforms. Make sure that you send the questions that you need. We are still going to have more conversations together with UNESCO as time goes on. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and we love you.
Thank you for having me.